Well, maybe I can just start by saying that we're very excited the last 4 or 5 years to have several new drugs on the market for pulmonary arterial hypertension. One is macitentan, was approved based on a big study called Seraphin, and the other is selexipag, approved based on a big study called Griffin. And these are revolutionary studies that added 2 new medications to our arsenal.
So, as a company, we're expanding our understanding of this disease by doing what we call real-world studies as well as clinical studies. So in clinical studies, we control the conditions very carefully. We have inclusion and exclusion criteria, but what happens is these drugs get used in the real world as well with patients. Therapy gets individualized for each patient. And we continue to collect information in registries, and the data we're presenting at this meeting actually coming out of what we call real-world studies, out of registries, where we see what happens in actual practice. So we see that, for instance, on the data from macitentan here, we're treating patients in a population with portopulmonary hypertension, where many of those patients have been excluded from clinical trials in the past. We see them being treated with Opsumit or macitentan, and the experience is good. The patients are responding nicely, and it's relatively safe in that population. And similarly with selexipag or Uptravi, in our base trials we titrated patients once a week, and in real practice we're seeing that titration sometimes occurs a little slower than that. It takes 2 weeks or sometimes 3 weeks before patients tolerate side effects and get titrated up. And it's new and important information for physicians to see that things are a little different in real-world practice.
Yeah, you can't emphasize how important the registries are. We need randomized trials to get drugs through the FDA, really well-controlled trials, but like Gary mentioned, in the real world, things are often done differently. Patients might be a little different. They may not be as rigorously screened in terms of inclusion and exclusion criteria to be placed on a drug. So we don't offer registries, and people worried about the endothelin receptor antagonists and liver problems for a long time. Bosentan, we had to check liver function tests every month. Now with our newer ERAs like macitentan, we don't need to do that. Furthermore, they're safe and effective, and appear to be safe and effective in patients with liver disease.